But before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about that lighting in those shadows here. So what we can do is, like we said before, we can go in here to sky. We can click on here. We can add a child light here, and you actually see here's the skylight. So you can go through here, and let's go in here to back here to edit and turn off scale mode. So we're just going to be moving these lights around. So you can actually go through here, and you can position these lights. In this case, since it's directional, you can go through and you can rotate this light. So this is a light that you can move around. And with it selected, you have a lot more light options in here. So you can go through here and you can change the color to whatever you want, change the overall brightness, whether or not it casts shadows, what type of light it is. So directional, here's a spotlight. So here's the spotlight cone. And then, or if you want to do like an omni light, which is just like having a light bulb in your scene. But of course, if we don't like this light, we just select it and we just hit the delete key. And you can always drop in more lights in here. You can go in here to Scene, Add Object, Light, and then we just added a light in here. By default, it looks like the spotlight is going to be what's on here. And in fact, let's go back to the main camera real here, and just while we're kind of messing around, I'm going to turn off depth of field just so we can kind of see what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and select this light in our scene. You're going to see this is the direction of that cone. So if I want to put a spotlight in my scene, I can rotate it around. I don't need to scale it or anything, but I can just kind of move this into place here. So here we can see, I'll go ahead and tilt this down a little bit. So now we're lighting our scene. So this is where I would use the sky or the HDR image to go through and allow us to have reflections based on this. And then I would use lights to go ahead and light my scene here. What I'll do generally is I'll come in here and instead of a spotlight, directional light's nice. You can actually just leave this at the center of your scene, and this is basically just all rotation. It doesn't really matter where this is moved physically in your scene. It's really all rotation based. It's like having a sun, which you can tell by the little icon here. Just having a sun in your scene, so using your rotations is like the direction of the whole overall sunlight. But what I like to do is I'll go in here just for like almost product rendering or doing like a portrait setup would be more of an omni light, just having like a flashlight in your scene here. So you can just go ahead and move this into place. And kind of mixing that lightness in here with your overall sky brightness that we're doing to capture our reflections. And we'll go back here to our light. If you want to, you can double click this and we can say this will be our key light, and in here you can go through and you can overcrank this brightness a little bit if you want to. And if you go up here to shape width, that'll make your light bigger or smaller, and it'll also have the effect of softening your shadows a little bit. So if you do change this width and you do need to back it off just a bit, that's one way to achieve that result. You're going to see that light kind of disappears when I click off, and I can go here and I can select the icon. But if you want to have a visible shape in there, you can also just click on that, and now you have something visible in your scene. But I'll go ahead and keep that invisible. Now, if I want, I can go up here to our scene. We can add another light in here, and this light we can just immediately change over here to Omni. I'll go ahead and drag this back behind. And here you can play around with if you want like a cool kind of rim light over on this side. You can go through and you can change that color just to kind of cool that off just a little bit. And then we can warm up our key light. If you ever want to duplicate a light, you can just select it and then hit Control D, and that'll duplicate that light off. And then now you can kind of go around and kind of get that effect you want. We'll go ahead and put some molten steel lighting on this side. So go ahead and say OK. And now you can choose where your camera goes. Right now we have a main camera. If you ever want to, you can lock this camera, so now I can't click or move this thing. And you can have two cameras, just like we did before. We can hit main camera. You can go in here to Scene, Add Object, Add a new camera, and it'll have a bunch of default settings. Or you can just hit Control D on this camera. And this could be a camera you say, you know, I want to lock down this camera right here. So this camera will go ahead and lock, and then our main camera we can use just to kind of navigate our scene and set our lighting. Now one thing we are getting is we're getting some artifacting over here underneath our post effects. I think our bloom is getting a little out of control, so I'm going to go here and we'll go ahead and play around with these settings just to kind of get rid of that kind of chunky bloom that was happening.